Before I get into my continued review of the anime that turned me into a raging degen, anyone else notice that this OVA starts off like a horror anime? Tenchi stumbles upon a cave and unwittingly unleashes a trapped demon on the world, which then hunts him down to his school to try and murk him for no other reason than he shares the DNA of the guy who stuck them in that hole in the first place. He is systematically stalked and assaulted, and it's only through skill, a little bit of dumb luck, and an ancient artifact that he's even able to survive. The episode even ends with the surprise revelation of the monster hiding in his bedroom. Want more proof that this is a horror anime? Before any of this happens, we get a shot of a cat sunning itself on the steps of Tenchi's grandpa's shrine. The cat appears later on, disappearing into the air like a ghost, and the only trace of it we ever see again is moments later when Ryoko is seen playing with its bell collar. Given that this cat, as far as I can tell, never shows up again in the entire anime, I can only assume that Ryoko fucking killed this cat, and nobody, Tenchi included, seems to be interested in interrogating her about that fact. Naively unleashing a trapped evil, being stalked in an ordinarily safe and secure everyday place, an ending jump scare, and a domesticated animal gets killed? I can only infer that the writers initially tried to make a horror anime, only they got horny at the design of the monster and then ended up creating the entire harem genre as a result. Also, Squidward Nose here never shows up again. Tenchi totally bodies him for the crime of accusing him of having sex with a mummy, and then he never shows up again. Was he embarrassed at getting annihilated so handily by a skinny-armed waif like Tenchi, or did he meet the same fate as the cat? Well, if you're out there, Squidward Nose, I have a message for you. I absolutely would have sex with this mummy. Anyways, the third episode begins with Ayeka dreaming about being an average 8-year-old Jiraiyan princess outwardly lusting after her clearly much older half-brother Yosho. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen, because this show has epic levels of implied incest. Again, I have to state my sympathy for Yosho. He spies the first attractive woman whose age is in the double digits and who isn't related to him by blood, and immediately absconds for greener pastures. Sure, she's under the control of an evil space wizard. Sure, she's laying waste to my planet and probably killed hundreds of people. Goodbye, Ayeka! I can fix her! So it turns out Ayeka has spent an entire week in her room not interacting with anyone other than her sister. Sasami, being the best character in the entire show, and it's not even close, points out that this is horribly rude and Ayeka is coaxed into coming downstairs and actually expressing gratitude to the people who have housed and sheltered them after she tried to have them killed by floating trees in previous episodes. Meanwhile, Ryoko shows off her latest acquisition, a black egg she harvested from the wreckage in the lake just outside. She manages to convince Sasami that the egg is the product of an unholy and probably very hot and kinky union between her and Tenchi. Ayeka of course gets pretty damn jealous for someone who has barely interacted with Tenchi since she imprisoned and tried to literally murder him. The implication, of course, is that Ayeka is actually so stupid and irrational that she genuinely believes not only that Ryoko and Tenchi did the horizontal bop, but that Ryoko also gave birth within the mere week or so that they've known each other, and that Ryoko gave birth to an egg the size of a bowling ball, and that Tenchi somehow fathered this abomination.
Why don't you just go over there and hold that egg with your monster woman?
But the people are retarded.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's only the beginning of the third episode, but we're gonna have to start awarding best girl points. Point goes to Ryoko for thoroughly displaying her opponent's intellectual inferiority, and bonus points for getting her to assault the guy she's competing with her for. The egg hatches, and inside is everyone's favourite Pokemon, Ryo-Oki, a strange cross between a cat and a rabbit, usually referred to cleverly as a cabbit. Let's be honest, who actually cares what this unholy thing is? It's cute and furry and makes a little noise when it hops. I mean, look at it! Look at it! Ha! After Ryoko openly sexually harasses a teenage boy in full view of Western audiences, Tenchi's grandpa, Katsuhito, appears on scene. Let's talk about Tenchi's grandpa for a minute. Tenchi's grandpa is the GOAT. I won't spoil too much about him, but he's a poet, he's a warrior, he's basically a goddamn modern day samurai. I honestly feel sorry for Tenchi that he has to try and live up to this stoic badass of a man. He even manages to grope Ryoko and get away with it scot-free. He's basically my idol and he's the reason I am the man I am today. He even trolls the hell out of Tenchi by telling him he has to be a responsible father now, and Tenchi responds by being a stroppy teenager. God, I love this man. I'm tempted to give him some best girl points, but then people would think I'm calling him a woman when in fact I'm just gay. Later on, Ayeka is out walking around and stumbles upon Tenchi and his grandfather doing sword training, which happens to look just like the kind practiced on her home planet. Similar fighting styles, Tenchi being able to control Yosho's sword, Grandpa being very similar looking to a certain historical figure. Gee, I wonder who Tenchi's grandpa actually is. Ayaka somehow manages to fall over and injure herself while looking at something, and Tenchi musters every ounce of testosterone in his body to carry Ayaka out to a wood cabin, and by the time he gets there, Ayaka is soaking wet. It's also raining outside, so Tenchi starts up a fire and displays himself in all his waifish nippleless glory. Before Ayaka can set the cabin on fire with that blush, Tenchi heads outside to let her change out of her wet clothes, at which point she is stalked by a mysterious creature, and naturally, being a woman, Ayaka is utterly terrified by anything furry with 4 legs that isn't a merciless killing machine. Tenchi and Ayaka have a conversation in which Ayaka reveals that she was meant to marry Yosho. She even points out that it might seem strange to Earthlings to marry a relative, indicating that she's never been to Bradford before. The next day, Tenchi continues hauling Ayaka down the trail, only to encounter the sacred tree of the Masaki Shrine. Ayaka reveals that this tree is in fact Funaho, Yosho's ship, which has now taken root and cannot become a ship anymore. Upon accessing the equivalent of the ship's black box recording, we get to see Ryoko looking sexy. I mean scary. Actually, no, I mean sexy. Skexy? And then Yosho penetrating her through the neck, which I wouldn't have gone for personally, but hey, I ain't here to kink shame. Ayaka concludes that since Funaho is alive, then that must mean Yosho is still alive. Don't worry then, all we have to do is track down a man who looks and acts like a 100-years-old space samurai. Alas, I can't seem to think of any off the top of my head. Oh well, I'm sure they'll pop up eventually. Ayaka apologises to Tenchi for being a stuck-up bitch and gives him back the sword, rewarding him for his hard work by giving him a job as a bodyguard. Gee, thanks Ayaka. I'd have preferred a blowjob, at least then I'd get 30 seconds of silence. Ryoko and Sasami show up and Ayaka successfully gets one over on Ryoko through the simple act of being nice to Tenchi for a prolonged period of time, at which point Ryoko gets ass mad and pisses off into the sky while Ayaka leads Tenchi away hand in hand, making good use of that ankle which has suddenly been cured in the last few minutes.
Well, Hey! I thought you twisted your ankle!
Oh, yeah. Well, see, the thing about that is...
This is the episode that gives us a little backstory for Ayaka, portraying her as something a little more than the borderline psychopathic princess who tried to murder Tenchi and her own sister in previous episodes. Yes, the whole thing with her being arranged to marry her older brother as a kid is a little strange to my Western and apparently Earthling eyes, but this is an OVA from the 90s, trust me, it could be far worse. And hey, at least Yosho does the right thing by buggering off to chase some violent space poon across the universe instead of marrying an 8-year-old, so that's something. As can be said about previous episodes, the animation is gorgeous, paying particular attention to the natural environment and lighting. Even a scene where Tenchi and Ayaka sit in a cabin next to a fire is given atmosphere by the superior penmanship of the artists who worked on this, more than making up for the somewhat stilted English dialogue that kind of leads nowhere. And yes, it's a nice scene and quite an iconic one in fact, so I'll give Ayaka a best girl point just for that. Whilst the episode isn't without its action, what with the flashbacks to Yosho's victory over Ryoko, it serves as a good period of downtime after the action-packed first 2 episodes and allows the audience to settle in with the characters. Well, so far so good, eh? Again, if you guys want me to continue breaking these things down, by all means like, comment, subscribe or yell at me in the street. And go check out Clown Town or the Movie Pills. Hell, even my Let's Play videos could use some love. In the meantime, I'm DeadEye, and may you ride the night to the morning sun.